If you have questions, please use the questions section of the webinar control panel that should be up on your screen to enter them. If there is time at the end, we will be answering questions. If we don't get to your question, don't worry. We will answer all questions via email within a few days' time. I see a few more people logging in, so I'm just going to pause for a few seconds before we get started. Okay, great. Though some people are still logging in, we will get started. Hopefully everyone will be on by the time the content starts. My name is Jillian Stamatis, and I will be moderating this webinar. Welcome to Get Ready for Fully Remote eCOA in your next DCT trial. Paula, Matt, and Rochelle, if you lead the discussion, that would be great. And Paula, I'm handing presenter over to you.
Hi everyone. On behalf of Cantus, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining today's webinar. We will be discussing eCOA data management and compliance monitoring in decentralized clinical trials. As Jillian mentioned, my name is Matthew, and I will be presenting today along with my colleagues Paula and Rochelle. So let's get started by diving into the basics of decentralized clinical trials. For those of you who are unfamiliar to decentralized clinical trials, they are trials that are formatted with tools and technologies that allow study teams to communicate with patients and collect data remotely. A study may be set up fully decentralized, where patients will complete the entire trial from their home or another remote location, or a study may be set up in a hybrid format, where the patient may need to complete some clinical visits on site as well. So now that we've introduced you to the basics of decentralized clinical trials, we'd like you to participate in a poll to get a sense of your collective experience with decentralized clinical trials. And I think Jillian will be entering the poll, so you should be seeing that shortly. So we'll give you a couple moments to go ahead and complete that. All right, so it looks like about 80% of you have not, and about 20% of you have. So that's a good mix. So I hope that each and all of you will benefit from this presentation. Thank you, Jillian. All right, so let's discuss some of the benefits of decentralized clinical trials for patients. As these trials are more flexible, the study may see improvements in patient recruitment and retention. No geological barriers allows patients to complete questionnaires remotely at their convenience. Also, no travel compensation will be required. With the help of trial technology, the patients may also interact with the site team more efficiently to submit data and also answer any questions that may be needed. And then we also have a quick statistic for you. Paul, if you don't mind just clicking again. Thank you. With 20% of potential trial participants located more than 2 hours from trial sites, the participation in traditional trials may be severely limited. So this could be a huge benefit to decentralized clinical trials. And at this time, I'll hand over the presentation over to Paula.
Thank you very much, Matthew. So hi, everyone. Actually, Matthew presented the advantages of decentralized clinical trials, but we need also to think about some challenges in this kind of trials. So actually, let's focus on patients. As we know, decentralized clinical trials are not on-site. Actually, the visit takes place at home, and it can make patients feel alone or confused. So that's a potential risk. Also, even some patients can challenge the interest of the trial. Why? Actually, because maybe they don't really understand the study purpose, or also because if they have any question, it is always easier to ask the question directly to the site team on site rather than do it remotely. At the end, also in a decentralized clinical trial, the way in which patients are interacting with sites is via technologies. And even if sometimes we are providing user-friendly technologies, there are a lot of patients that are not confident or comfortable with them, and it can generate some complexity or fear. So actually, how can we face these challenges? So first of all, we need to focus on monitoring. So the monitoring is really important because like this, we will be able to manage all the possible deviations. Also, we need to think about the training, not only the training for the sites, but also the training for the patients and the training for the monitors. Then we can draft user guides for the patients and for the site. So in case there is any question or any doubt, instead of asking directly to the site team, if maybe the patient don't have the possibility, they can always check the user guide and find the solution inside. And at the end, we also need to think about different backup options. Why? Because actually, if, for example, the main mode of collection is not available or the patient is not confident with it, we will always have the possibility to collect the data in another way. But there is not only challenges for the patient, there are also challenges for data. And in a standard clinical trial, actually, the data is going to be collected more or less in the same way by more or less the same patient, the same site, sorry, site team on site. But in a decentralized clinical trial, the data will be collected at home. So actually, it will mean that the data will be less harmonized. They can get some bias. And also the risk of error is higher than in a site collection. And here we have the second question of today. So actually, the question is, what do you think are the main challenges of decentralized clinical trials as far as data is collected? So I'm not sure if I am able to see the answers.
Hi, yes, Paula, it looks like we have about 25% of communication between patients and site, 25% traceability of the data, and 50% patient compliance.
That is really interesting because actually the communication between patient and site is important, the traceability as well, and also the timelines. But actually, all the answers are accurate, and we are going to see together why in the next slides. So actually, one of the most important things in a clinical trial is the data, and not only for us but also for you. And actually, the way in which the data collection is done is really important, and the data manager plays an important role in the clinical trial. So now we are going to see a Cayenti's case study and how to manage data in decentralized clinical trials. So we all know actually that the standard clinical trials are not always ideal or in a perfect world. Actually, the way the data is completed can always create inconsistencies, mismatches, issues, and questions. And the fact that we are going to have decentralized clinical trials are also increasing the challenge. So actually on Cayenti's side, we really recommend to consider data management from the very start of the study, because actually the data manager is the one that is in contact with the data since the very beginning of the study and can raise potential weird behaviors to the sponsor, and we can control them better and avoid any deviation. So actually what we are proposing is to create a data manager culture from the very start of the study, not only in the middle or in the end. And how can we do this? So we need to define a data management plan all along the study. We need to define also a strong, user-friendly, and unified technology for all the stakeholders. And which is really important is to have a constant communication, not only between the clinical team, which is already the case, but also involve the data manager team from the very beginning of the study until the end. In a decentralized clinical trial, actually, we are going to have 3 different phases. So the first one is regarding the implementation phase or setup phase. Then we will have a second phase more in the running phase, in which we are recruiting the patients. And at the end, we will have another phase, which is the closing phase. So the role of the data manager is really important in all these phases, and we are going to see together why. During the setup phase, actually, the data management is going to guarantee that we think about all the possible what-ifs. So actually, why this phase is so important? Because in this phase, we are going to design the study. We need to remember that in a decentralized clinical trial, we don't have the site team to guide the patient through the visits or through the questionnaires. So actually, the patient is alone at home. That is important because we need to think that the technology that we are going to use and why are we designing the study will be limiting data collection errors. So actually, the data manager plays an important role to try to get sample and user-friendly the study. And also like this, we will anticipate any incoherency in the data collection. We have several examples here that I'm going to explain. So for example, the first one is regarding missing questionnaires. We actually all know that during a clinical trial, we are going to have missing questionnaires. And actually, one thing in which we can think is to implement special questionnaires that will describe the different reasons of missing questionnaires. So the idea will be to have a questionnaire in which the site team can complete why this questionnaire wasn't completed. That will avoid queries, that will avoid site burden, and also that will provide information to the sponsor about why the questionnaire wasn't completed. Also, using technology will enable to enter the queries directly into the system. There is no need to use separate papers. Another important thing that we need to consider is that we, as I already mentioned, we need to get technology easy, are things easy for the patients. So actually, which is really interesting is the e-diary. E-diary is a solution in which the questions will open and close by themselves, and the patient just need to log in into the device and complete the questionnaire. What is the problem here? That actually normally there is a time window, so the questionnaires are going to open and are going to close. And sometimes if the patient forget to complete it on time, the questionnaire will close and then it will be missing, so there will be missing data. So in this setup phase, we need to think about, for example, implementing some alarms, so the patient will be reminded about completing the diary, and like this we will avoid missing data. Another important thing is the traceability risk of the different data collection modes. So actually, as I already mentioned, it's really important to have backup modes and anticipate in the beginning of the study about multiple data collection modes, such as BYOD, eCOA, or interview mode. Why? Because actually, if the main mode is not available, we will avoid losing data. And we also need to use only traceable and editable mode. Of course, we need to document all this in the beginning of the study with the sponsor to anticipate any deviation during the running phase. And now I let my colleague Bruciali to continue with the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paula. Hello, everyone. Let me walk you through the challenges we face once the study is live. Paula, can you please change? Thank you. Incoherencies are one of the common challenges faced during the trial. There could be a lot of different types of incoherencies observed in the data obtained, such as date mismatches, missing questionnaires, incorrect questionnaires, duplicate questionnaires. Such incoherencies can result in data loss or any statistical issue if not handled immediately. Such incoherencies can be dealt with in-depth monitoring of the data by the data manager, periodic reconciliation of the data, by doing quality control of the data on a regular basis. Another challenge we can face is GCP breach. Different types of GCP breach can be observed during the trial. most common being sharing of password. So what could be the steps taken to resolve this issue? First and foremost, inform the sponsor immediately so that they can decide how to treat this data which is concerned due to GCP breach. Later, we can retrain the site and the patient to avoid such incidents in future. We can also make simplified user guides for the patients. Our next challenge is patient and site's compliance to the study. Compliance is very important for the success of the trial. However, it is also a commonly observed hurdle. So what can be done to achieve maximum compliance? We can have a strong query management process in place. We can provide guidance to the site or the monitors regarding any data related issue they can face. We can put up some alarms or alerts as reminders of the schedule. And last but not the least, follow the next one, please. Data loss. Sometimes the visit or procedures could be missed due to technical issue with the tablet and the patient might not be able to reach the site. So to avoid data loss, we can implement alternative data collection applications like eCOA and interview mode. eCOA enables the patient to complete the questionnaire from any other device other than the tablet, like their own laptop. Whereas interview mode, the site can complete the questionnaires on patient's behalf via a telephone call. Also, awareness regarding any common cause of data loss can be created through newsletters, alert emails, or chain emails, and trainings. Well, now I let Matthew to take over the closing phase of the study.
Thank you, Vrushali. So now, as Vrushali mentioned, we'll be diving into the closing, which includes the finite data checks and also the database lock. So when talking about the risks, we believe the most important is ensuring quality data is provided in a timely manner. This includes the closing of queries, completion of data reconciliation, data cleaning, and also the transfer of data from any site or subject devices. In our experience, we found that the best solution is to keep communication open and constant between all teams involved in the study to ensure everyone is aware of each step and also their responsibilities. We've also found that by requesting a quality check to be completed on all ePro devices prior to the database lock, this ensures that no data is missed. A second challenge that is often faced is ensuring that all sites have received and accessed their site-specific archives. By having a direct access to the eCOA solution, the site team can access and confirm receipt. So as we wrap up our presentation today, we would like to send you home with a nice take-home message. So in our experience, we feel that below are key factors of success in data management in decentralized clinical trials. They include continuous monitoring from data managers, ensuring it's secured, a service provider with extensive experience and a strong process is chosen, the right controls are put into place, solid communication with clinical team is established, and lastly, data security principles are managed. So now we would like to open up the presentation to the audience should you have any questions for us.
Well, that was a lot of great information. Thank you, Matt. As mentioned, a recording of this webinar will be sent to everyone. We do have a few questions before we conclude. So the first one is multi-layered. Regarding backup options, you talk about the web in the interview. Are there other relevant backup solutions, or do you have other recommendations about backup in decentralized clinical trials to avoid data loss or decrease in patient compliance? Matt?
Yeah, sorry about that. I was on mute. Yeah, that is a great question. So as you mentioned, we do offer the web backup and also interview modes. Also previously in the past, paper backup has been utilized as well, though as times are changing and we are moving towards the web backup solution. Paula or Rushi, would you like to add anything else?
It's the another one is interview mode. As I mentioned, it is basically a telephone call which the site can make to the patient and complete the questionnaire on their behalf. So that way, even if the patient is technologically challenged, we have a solution and there won't be a data loss.
Okay, great. We have one more question. You were talking about missing data. From your experience, what are the specific risks of using remote collection technologies?
Well, I think I can answer to this one since I was the one that was speaking about missing data. So actually, for missing data, we can have two kind of different situations why we have missing data. So the first of them is, which I already explained, so is missing questionnaires and why why the answers are missing. It can be for several questions. It can be a question of compliance. It can be a question of forget or just that the patient is unavailable. So actually, that's in this specific case. In the implementation of the missing questionnaires, the questionnaires in which you are going to implement a code list, and the site team can choose actually the answer in which the patient didn't complete, is really interesting. But then we have the second reason why we don't have we have missing questionnaires, and actually it can be because the device is not working. So a technical issue, especially. So the technical issue can happen in two ways. So the first one is, for example, the device is broken, it's not turning on or something like this. In this case, which is important, is what we just said, is to have a backup option. Because if we have the web COA, for example, they will always be allowed to go into this platform and complete the questionnaire. So like this, we will ensure that there is no data lost. And actually, we have also the interview mode, which is also a second backup. And it's always interesting to have this kind of backup options. And then the other issue that can happen, that is also a technical issue, is something related to the network. Like, for example, suddenly the patient loses the connection, or the Wi-Fi is not working, the 4G is not working, well, whatever. And actually, in that case, which is really important, and we need to think about this, is to have a device that allow to enter data, even if in that moment the device is not able to synchronize. So like this, at least the patient will be able to enter the data, and then we can always provide a support in which the support will try to manage this situation and try to fix this technical issue, and then the data will be transferred. So that are the two things that we need to consider in this case. Well, the three things: the missing questionnaires, the backup options, and also a strong support service that will avoid any possible technical issue, or at least will fix it and will solve the issue. I hope it answered the question.
Thank you so much, Paula. Okay, we do have a few more questions, but unfortunately we're out of time. We will answer all your questions via email in the coming days. Don't forget to be on the lookout for the link to this webinar in an email tomorrow. And again, don't forget to visit our website, kantis.com. Of course, I invite you to follow us on our LinkedIn channel. And thank you again, everyone.